This is an 8-iron, and it's a dead shank.
Wow.
Way right.
Oh, takes a hop
shank.
off the path.
You got to be kidding me. Very tough pitch shot right here. You got to hit it into the hill. One hop up and bite, and it's in.
Kind of like that.
Well, I would like to welcome back to the Sub 70 podcast our PGA Tour insider, 5-time winner on the PGA Tour and Ryder Cup member, and also now an author of Hunter of Hope, Ken Green. Thanks for taking the time today. Looking forward to the conversation of talking about the Open Championship and the book you've just written. Thanks for your time today. I really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure, big boy. Anytime for you.
Well, let's talk about the Open. Give me your synopsis from sort of 5,000 feet, and we'll kind of dig into it a little deeper, but let me know your thoughts on what unfolded.
Well, I know it wasn't probably, as exciting for many people because, it turned out to be a kind of a ho-hum, last 5 holes, but I thought it was one of the more relevant and important Opens that we've had in a long time. And, the idea that, the R&A finally went back to Ireland after, I don't know, was it 60 years or close to it?
Yeah.
Was great because Ireland has far more good golf courses than Scotland ever thought about. And there should be, 1 or 2 on the rotation. And then the fact that there's so many, big names from Ireland, you got Rory and obviously, Darren was from there, although he's, obviously past his prime, Patrick, and then, the sneak attack, which ended up being the best was Shane. And it just goes to show you how much pressure that you have when you put on your shoulders your country. And it to me, it was phenomenal, that Rory starts out like he did, basically out of pure nerves, and, just kind of throws his chances out the window. And then Shane just sneaks up there and just played, phenomenal golf, really, when you think about how well he played. And, Saturday's round was phenomenal. And then Sunday was just, figure out a way to get it around because, the weather went typical, Ireland, Scotland type weather.
Do you think the Rory thing, like I saw he was trying to deflect a little bit. That's what it looked like to me when he was saying, I'm just going to, smile and enjoy this. Do you think the mistake maybe could have been, in retrospect, not embracing the pressure that was there? And do you think that's maybe what sort of bit him on Thursday's round? Then he sort of got into the Rory mode of relaxing and playing his style of golf on Friday, damn near making the cut. But do you think when you played in front of, hometown in Connecticut or near your hometown, do you just have to, I shouldn't put words in your mouth. Did you deflect the pressure or do you just embrace the pressure?
I always just said, this is my best tournament. I wanted to win Hartford more than anything. And I just wanted it too much and never figured out how to play under the gun. And it was, it was a difficult, pill to handle that I never, really, even contended there and wanted it so bad. And, this is what Rory and Graham and Shane, were going through. And it, especially, Rory the most because he's also, from there, holding that, shooting that 61 when he was 16 and being the stud that he is. Cause let's face it, he's still a stud. And, so it's something that only he can really tell you the truth. I don't think he did tell you the truth, by saying it, it wasn't nerves on the first hole. It was clearly nerves. And if he was thinking at all, your mistake should be right. But this is what nerves and pressure does for you. It is amazing when you're not sound of head, when the nerves are getting in your head, you make some of the dumbest mistakes you've ever made playing the game, and it's like, what the hell was I thinking about? I mean, you just can't miss it there. Just play a sweeping big hook way out there if you have to. I know he didn't expect it, and I don't think he understood, how he was going to feel on that first tee. But when he got over that first ball and all of a sudden realized he was not Rory, he should have backed off and regrouped it and then come up with a different plan. And, because that first hole just killed him. I mean,
yeah, right. So is the thing to do in that situation, I guess, do you literally just need to step away, go through your pre-shot routine when you feel that coming on, that you're sort of not in the right mode to strike a golf shot at that level of playing on the PGA Tour?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If you don't step away, the odds of you pulling off that shot are so slim. For Joe Blow and in the member the club championship, if all of a sudden they've got an adrenaline rush or a nervous feeling that they've never had before, you've got to back off. I'm not a big guy in your routine, but I am a big believer in that. You got to recognize what's going on in your body, and you got to recognize, whoa, this is just all nerves and excitement. So rethink what you're going to do. Obviously it all depends on what kind of hole it is, and then then you make that decision. But if you don't back off, you're potentially letting a disaster happen. And in Rory's case, it happened.
I was going to ask you on this too. In your career, when you won, did you ever have a 3, 4, 5, 6 shot lead going into Sunday? And if you did, what are those nerves kind of like, knowing that you should win? You have a ton of time in the morning before you kind of get your routine started. What's that sort of like for a player to have?
Well, I was lucky in the sense that I could sleep forever. So, in Milwaukee, I was up by, I don't know, I think it was 4 or 5. And I literally slept till, 11:30 in the morning. So, I didn't have that 4 hours that most of the guys have today. But, my feeling, the way I always looked at it was I'm going to keep playing exactly how I was. And, the last 4 holes or something, then you'll make regroup it, is how I always looked at it. And, I think I built up the lead to about 7 and then just kind of backed off and coasted in. But unless you, for some reason, you're leading and playing poorly, which, I guess there's a couple of guys on this earth that have maybe pulled that off. Why not keep playing the way you're playing? I mean, you're obviously playing really well, and I think that's the mistake that some of the kids make, in that they overthink it. And they do try to get a little cautious and let me play smart here. Let's have those guys catch me before I start playing a little more aggressive. And it's like, just play how you've been playing. Because again, my thought was, I have not won this tournament until it's over. I mean, my very first tournament, I was up by 4 on the last hole, and I still went through my process. Well, there's OB left. If you do that and you cork another, all right. So I literally blew it into the next fairway. These are things that you gotta think that someone like a John Vandevelde didn't do.
Right.
And it cost him the Open, and but this is what happens under the gun. You just don't think right. It's sometimes you think you are, but you aren't. And then next thing you know, that the worst thing on the planet's happened. And there's been tons of guys that have just kind of blown so many tournaments on the last hole or two, and it's all because of excitement and that extra rush of adrenaline, and then all of a sudden you're not thinking right, and it's the next thing you know, you're back at the hotel room beating on the pillow.
I was always surprised, like with the Vandevelde thing, like where was the caddy, right? Because you think the caddy could have still a clear enough mind to be like, hey, boss, let's just hit a 6-iron over to here, then a 6-iron to here, and then we'll wedge it on and we're good.
It's hard to say, and we've never heard from either one. As did the caddy have a meltdown also, and just kind of got lost in the moment, or did he actually say something to him and he got overruled because the caddy can only say something. The player's
Right.
the one that makes the final decision. But I had no problem with him hitting driver, on that. But when he got incredibly lucky when the ball stayed out of the burn. But then literally all he had to do was hit wedge.
Right.
I mean, no one's ever going to remember, hey, I won the British Open, but you were a scared cat and laid up and laid up and laid up. No one will ever remember that. They're going to. It's the final position is what matters, and he just wow.
Yeah,
I mean,
still amazing to today.
How can you ever explain that?
Were you surprised on Sunday that I know the conditions were really tough? So, I think anyone was under par in the last 5 or 6 groups. But were you surprised someone did not make a run at Lowry at all, where somebody just caught, as much fire as you can have that day and let it all go out and, have a run at the leader? Were you surprised that did not, or do you think the conditions were just so difficult that was going to be really hard to do for any of these world-class players?
Well, I think it was, and this may come off wrong, but I think the reason they couldn't make a charge is because no one drives the ball worth a crap anymore. And when the wind really started blowing, they didn't know how to keep it in the fairway. And today's players are, they're lucky if they hit half their fairways. I mean, that's a great driving round nowadays. And now all of a sudden you get this wind coming out of, anywhere from 10 to 30 miles an hour, and you have got to stripe it. And, today's guys are not. Brooks might be the closest, but these were much tighter fairways. The other places Brooks has been a stud on had a little more room and didn't have the massive wind, where now you have to be, dead on to control that your ball flight, versus how the wind's going versus the shot you decided to hit. So all of a sudden there's 3 or 4 variables that you have to piece together. And I mean, they just don't have it in today's game. It's just, that's part of the negative of, the hit and bomb. That when you get those kind of weather conditions, it's tough.
I know you kind of mentioned this earlier. I believe you were just on a trip over to Ireland and playing, and obviously, the golf course looked great at Royal Portrush, and I hope it's on the Rota, and I'm sure you agree permanently. I thought it was great. What courses did you play when you went over there, and what were some of the highlights from your trip? And it sounds like it's just I've never been over to Ireland yet, but it sounds like a wonderful place to spend some time, play some golf.
I will tell anyone who loves golf, if you don't get over to Ireland once before you're too old to do anything, you're an absolute fool. It is mind-boggling how good those golf courses are, and what a different game it is. I played Portrush the first time I went over to Ireland, and this time around we went to Ballybunion and Waterville and Tralee and Doonbeg, Old Head, and we played Royal County Down twice, and just incredible golf courses. Old Head is, I never thought I'd say the day that I would make the statement that Pebble Beach is nothing. I mean, Old Head made Pebble Beach look like it was just a nice little golf course. The views and the holes there are just stunning. So if you have to include Old Head, and it's a different game which you can experience whether it's the wind or the rain. I mean, where else does it blow 25 miles an hour and then monsoon, but you still have to play because the course the water just drains away. We never play in this stuff over here.
Yeah, you just
we get some rain and we're all wusses. We go flying inside.
Right.
It's unless you're a quote Lee Trevino type player who just would hit it low all the time and work the ball. Playing over in Ireland or Scotland is really hard.
How good was Royal County Down?
Oh, I love Royal County Down. I mean, prior, Royal County Down is a better golf course for the big boys. Old Head has just got the beauty and all that, but Royal County Down is just, it just doesn't get any better. Hole after hole, you got to play all the shots. And, it's funny because when I went over there in '01, obviously I was two-legged version. And, I was more about my score and trying to, beat up each course. Whereas this time around, I was more about analyzing the holes, and really appreciating what they were. And it was so much more satisfying analyzing the holes and not so much worrying about how I played. And we played Royal County Down in a wind that was like, whoa, this is just a beast. And it's, but everything's fair. There's nothing that's like incredibly bad. And it's there for you, and obviously if you get in those pot bunkers, you got to blop it out. But they're there. I mean, that's just part of the game. It's no different than a water hazard or a line of trees in America. If you hit it there, it's kind of your fault. Now you do get boned when some of these bounces in the fairway, but there's a reason they do that over there, and that's part of it. And that's to play with your mental psyche, and it plays with a lot of us, especially the Americans, because when we go over there, we've never really encountered that kind of golf. So in our heads, it's unfair, and then you beat on yourself, and you beat on the golf course, and next thing you know, you finish 39th or missed the cut, and that's why players like the Watsons and the Nicklaus and the Tigers of the world have won as many as they have, because their heads were so much better than us other players that were good players, but they knew how to shake off adversity better than we did.
You've played in the Open Championship a multitude of times. What makes it, like, from a player's perspective? I mean, from a fan's perspective, I think it's the greatest championship in the world. I mean, that and the Masters, it's close, but gosh, I think the Open is just, it would be my apex if I ever had the talent to be on tour and I could win one, that would be the one, which is never going to happen. But I love that championship. From a player's standpoint, what just makes it so special?
Well, I think it's just the history. Obviously, I'm not a big fan of how they talk about major records and they count guys from 1880. It was a different world. They were just, all that kind of stuff. But it's just the history. And here and again, I'm kind of contradicting myself by saying the history does matter. But so it's, Jack and Arnie revived the Open, because the Open was kind of dying. Americans didn't go over. You got to remember, back in the 40s and 30s and 50s and even the 60s, there was no money. You basically lost money going over there. So until Jack revived this concept of the majors being the only way to really evaluate a career, and then but that's 59 years ago. So we've had so much history along with the previous years, and it's just, it's the home of golf. You got St. Andrews, which people have a love-hate relationship with. I personally don't like St. Andrews, and others think it's the greatest thing on the planet. So but then it's weird, because some players will say they want to win the Masters more than anything. Some will say the Open's the biggest one, and then others will say it's the U.S. Open. So it's weird how all golf pros will come up with a different reason why one is a better event than the other.
Hey, it's Jason at the Sub 70 podcast. We want to let everybody know that our Sub 70 CB forged irons should be in stock hopefully in the next week or two. And along with that, we will also have the combo sets available with our new 639 forged MB. You'll be able to pick out exactly where you want the blade iron to start and stop, and the same with the cavity back to make the perfect forged set. Once again, everything is always custom made to your specifications here in Sycamore, Illinois. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. We're always glad to help with any shaft questions or club fitting needs you may have. You can see all this available at golfsub70.com. Thanks again for listening, and hope you enjoy the podcast with Ken. interesting, too, on Shane Lowry, and I kind of wanted to talk about this. Back to Oakmont in 2016, where he enters that final day with a 4-shot lead, and you end up losing by 3 to DJ. In some sort of a weird way, does going through something like that, in your opinion, help in the sense that he knew what to expect yesterday? He knew how his nerves would sort of be, playing with a lead at a major. And do you think that kind of experience helps him get over that finish line yesterday where it's not going to be something he's never experienced before? And obviously he's been playing well this year. He won in Abu Dhabi, and he's been trending the right way. But do you think an experience of that kind of failure, if you take it the right way, can help you get over that finish line, like something like yesterday, even though it was a tough pill to swallow for him in 2016?
Yeah, I mean, that's what some people believe. I'm not so sure it really did. Because, only he knows if it was pure nerves at the Open or herein lies the difference about when people say, well, this guy choked at the U.S. Open and this guy, choked at the Buick Open. The problem with choking at the U.S. Open is that the slightly mishit shot at a major, the U.S. Open or, an Open, is you pay the price more because either the rough is thicker or, over there in the Open you have the winds like you did Sunday. But it's not that they're choking any more or less because it's a major. If you're just nervous, you're nervous. It won't matter whether it's the Buick Open or the U.S. Open. It just gets multiplied and people remember it more because those are the, quote, big ones. Only Shane could probably tell you, how much he learned. The main reason that I think it was harder this time around was because he was playing for his country. This is Ireland's hope, and there had to have been such a massive bolt of extra pressure. Look at that opening tee shot. It was all nerves.
Yeah,
and it's but from that point on, he seemed pretty good. And then he started getting really nervous again around 8, 9, 10, and 11, and you could see things were kind of falling apart. The holes were so hard that the only reason nobody caught him is because they were so damn hard.
Right.
So even though he might have been panicking a little, everybody else who was trying to catch him was pressing so hard and couldn't get the ball in the fairway. So no one ever put any pressure on him. And then he makes the birdie on 15. And that was all she wrote from that point on. And then he basically played flawless coming in because he had gone through the adrenaline rush of some of the bad shots, and now it calmed it down. And that's the ebbs and flows of the game of golf. And I don't think enough credit is given to this young man for how much weight he had on him. I mean, like I said, look what happened to Rory. And he clearly a 5 times the player that Shane is. And Roy, he just lost it, so to speak. And it's just a massive amount of pressure. And the other thing that people don't, like over here in the States, might not understand is that they love the game and respect the game more than we do. We have people that love the game, but we have so many people that are going to events because it's the social thing to do. That they've turned golf into 25% of diehard golfers, 75% of let's go have fun. Whereas over there, it's probably the other way, and they have a different kind of respect for the game of golf than we do. I'm not saying it's a good thing or a bad thing, but I do believe that for that reason, I think it was harder for Shane this time around. And I don't know if he really could have pulled up any info from the errors he made at Oakmont.
Totally different arena. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, it's probably the championship he wants the most, and to do it at home, right? Has to be a whole new level of a situation he's never been in before. But he's kind of a gamer. If you kind of look at him, like most of the time he gets in contention, he's for the most part, he's a pretty damn good finisher, and he seems to kind of, he's got a WGC. Like he's tough under the gun for the most part. So
yeah,
it's
well, I mean, people forget that he wins as an amateur the Irish Open.
That's pressure,
which is obviously not easy to do, and I believe he did it at Portrush.
Yes.
And then he won the Irish Open a couple of years later. So I mean, obviously, he feels well there. He doesn't hit the panic button and say like, well, I'll use me like I might have at Hartford. He somehow channels it in to a calmer Shane Lowry, because I don't know how many quote European wins he's got, but he's won 3 times that I know of. And I know he hasn't that many wins. So I mean, that's pretty impressive.
What'd you think of Tiger this week? Looked to me a little out of sync. I wonder how bad his body is hurt, and it seems like there's more going on there. And I don't know if it's just because it's 60 degrees every day and cold, and it can't be good on 4 back surgeries. But I don't know. It didn't look like third or fourth gear was sort of there from afar. I don't know if you have any sort of assessment from kind of watching him the first couple of days.
I thought he was dead on Thursday. He just wasn't. Something wasn't right. Either he just mentally wasn't there, or physically he also wasn't there. But I think what we're really seeing is how much that 5-year fall from grace, and the injuries and the mental stuff, what is done to him, and that winning at Augusta. I think it's a burnout. I never thought the either the best or the second best, depending on who you are, would fall to that kind of I won't call it demise, but that kind of emotional relief. It was amazing because this is Tiger Woods. I mean, he's been the greatest mind on the game since Jack, and so people, we just assume that he wins the Masters, that he's got a really good chance to win the others, and the idea that he just misses the cuts and all that, to me, is clearly a sign of how much that Masters meant to him, and that he's been fighting for 5+ years to get this back, and I honestly think by next year he'll be back to whatever he's going to be, at the age of 44. I think he'll be next year. But I still don't see why he's not going to win 1 or 2 more majors without a doubt. He's too good. He's just going to have those stretches, whether Augusta is perfect for him. He loves it, and it's made for him. So he's clearly going to contend there numerous times, and he's just too good. And for the other venues not to have a 1 week that pops up that he becomes Tiger again.
J.B. Holmes, Brooks Koepka sort of incident. Holmes fires a smooth 87 on Sunday. He's taken forever. Did Koepka handle that the right way afterwards? And what do you think the PGA Tour should do about this, in the sense that, I mean, Holmes looks like, to the viewer, it's just brutal, and he's not ready to go. I mean, it just takes forever. And we're seeing probably on TV, the part when they actually think he's ready to fire the ball, and it still takes forever. Is Koepka handle that the right way, in your opinion? And can we do anything to speed up the play so they play like we do, where it's 3.5 hours and it's over?
I think Brooks is in for, he's going to have to retrain his outlook, because too many of today's players are slow. So somebody with decent speed is going to have to figure out how to pull it back. He got off to such a bad start that now you start noticing these little things. If he had parred those first 4 holes, or even played them 1 under, he probably wouldn't be paying attention to it. But see, that's what this game does to you. The little things, if they open your little door in your head, all of a sudden the demon takes over, and it can bother you because it's insane how slow some of these guys are. My era, 80% of us were, decent speed to fast, and the 20 used to drive us nuts, and we couldn't get the tour to do anything then. And my brother, Slugger White, is a tour official. My brother-in-law, I should say, as a tour official, says that the average round is about 35 minutes slower now.
Yeah, I believe
and
it.
That's just today's players, with the don't hit till you're ready, go through your routine, do all this, do that. They don't even. It's like they don't even pull a club out or even start talking about it until after the guys hit a shot sometimes, and it's like, wouldn't you have already done that? As soon as he hits a shot, you should be able to swing yourself. It's like boom, 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 boom. But it just doesn't work that way today. And the tour hasn't had the nuggets in the last 30 years to do anything about it. So I don't think anything's going to change.
Yeah, I mean, if it was at our home club, if you played that slow, you would get banned from the group. I mean, you got to be ready, right? I mean, when the other guy's looking it over, you're getting your club and you fire at it. And I play better. I think most people play better when you kind of get in the rhythm of give me the yardage and what's the pin and see the shot in your head and pull the trigger, right? I mean, if I sit around thinking about it, personally, I get worse. I'd rather just play and let the flow go to it. But it's an interesting topic of how long it takes sometimes. And maybe, JB's just he's getting the poster boy for the whole thing. But, that's crazy that it's half hour, worse than your generation of playing. Right. I mean, I don't know how you solve it.
No one's asked, and I don't mean to interrupt, but, I do. You talk too much. No one's asked JB Holmes, well, when you're home with your buddies, do you go this slow? But when you're home with your buddies, you're shooting 64, 65, 66 like it's nothing because, you're more relaxed. So why all of a sudden, because you get on a, quote, tournament day, that you've got to slow everything down? And this is part of our world with, again, the sports psychologists and everybody else. But, it's a fine line. But in this game, sometimes you can try too hard and think too much, and you end up doing what he did. And then there's other times where if you just flew around, you wouldn't play. You have to take your time to fit your normal pace, and you only find your normal pace when you're out with your friends. And to me, if you're not playing the same speed that you are when you're with your friends, you're hurting yourself. And in the same concept is, if you're a talker with your friends, but you say nothing on tournament days, you're not being your true personality. Whatever your personality is, you have to make sure you're doing it on tournament day as you are on a normal day. Because then if you're not, I think you're becoming a different person, and then I don't think you can get the best out of you.
Well, let's switch gears here. You have a book that is out, Hunter of Hope, and my first question is, how did the idea of writing a book come to you, and what do you want people to sort of take away from the book that you authored?
Well, there's numerous things that I hope they take out of it, but basically, my friends just kept telling me that I've got to write something. I've got to write something. There's just so many different things have happened to me, good and bad. And of course, they didn't know about Honduras, but my hope is that you can get through anything in life, even when because I have fallen down miserably. I tried to get back up, and then I got knocked down again. But as long as you keep fighting, you can get through it. And life's worth fighting for. I don't care whether you believe in God or whether you don't believe in God. You've got to fight for life. But what purpose does it serve if you have some ugly tragedies in life, and you let that own you, and then you basically just go around the rest of your days spinning your head. So that's my hope, that they realize that you can get through anything. And then also there's a lot of great funny unique stories, and at least that's what I'm being told by complete strangers. That they hit all the emotions. They laugh, they have anger, they have tears. They have inspiration. They have this guy's a whack job. It's so only time will tell as to how many books we can put out there. But my main purpose is trying to help people.
There are some funny stories in it, and this is one of my questions, but it sounds like you're already kind of on it. Like, of the funny stories that people come up to you that you might not even know, is there one that's sort of at the top of their list where they're like, oh my God, that was absolutely hilarious and classic. Only Ken Green could have pulled this one off.
Well, obviously the Masters ones are good, but believe it or not, some people have asked me if the spaghetti thing on the plane was true. And where it got basically poured over my head by my ex-wife, where she had come up with the idea of, well, let's bring a bunch of spaghetti sauce over there because we're going to Hong Kong, and I'm a real picky eater, so we'll just have noodles and sauce. And we had some dumb argument or something. I don't really remember what it was about. And she's not going, and she's going, she's not going. We're at the airport. She's still yelling back and forth. Finally, she had disappeared. I told her to go home, and okay, so I'm getting on the plane, and there she is on the plane, or on the runway there. So we're getting in there. We're on the, they paid for first class seats, and the next thing I know, she's giving me a hard time again. I'm like, oh my God. And I just said, just go home, go. And I put my stuff down and I turned around and boom, the Tupperware of spaghetti sauce was all over me. I mean, it was like nobody believed that really happened. And I'm like, it happened. Just go find those people in first class that you remember it.
Yeah.
So it's just, some of my nip opens have been, kind of classic, and, the master stories have been unique. So it's an enjoyable read, and it's a quick read. I don't believe in adding fluffy lines and words. So it's it's to the point. My stories are all boom, bang, and then you go from there, and only time will tell whether people like it.
Yeah, we touched, like I said, there's some really classic funny stories, and there's also obviously some really tough ones. And the one of late that's getting the most press is you coming forward about the abuse that you suffered as a child living in Honduras. And I know it's important to you that it's out there to help other people. If it can help save one person or change laws, stuff like that. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but having this subject come up, I mean, it has to be very difficult. I can't fathom it, but yet there has to hopefully at the end of this be some positive that can come from it as well. And if it makes more awareness, or like you said, laws get changed or stuff happens, I'm assuming that's the part in the end that you kind of want from this, because to put yourself out there like that and to talk about it, I mean, I can't even wrap my brain around what you've been through, but I'm assuming there's a reason why you're doing it and letting the public know about this. When I decided to write the book, and then I just decided to tell a couple people about what happened, because prior to that, no one had known. And many of them wanted me to keep it out, and I'm like, I can't. That's just not my. If I'm gonna write my life, I've got to write my life, because whether I like it or not, that changed me. I'm the person I am is only because of what happened in Honduras. And that will forever be. I mean, I'm not saying I'm a bad person or anything, but I think I would have been a far better person if Honduras doesn't happen. I probably wouldn't have had the relationship problems that I've had, and everything else that comes with all that insane drama that happened down there. And it's my hope is to be able to to talk to some people, and I've gotten already numerous letters and conversations with people that are my age, and they've told me I'm the first one that they've told, and they're glad that I'm doing it, and it's
it's something that hopefully because of what little notoriety that I've had, you know, we can get the media world to pick up on it more. I'm a little stunned that it's taken me. It's hit me a little harder than I expected. I don't know. It's because if I blocked it for so long and just, you know, whenever it popped in my head, I just pushed it back and you know, whereas now you're talking about it openly and going through stuff and it's so I am surprised that it's hit me. I've had my moments of, you know, where you just kind of lose it, and it's but you know, I guess in some ways that might be helping me in the long run.
Yeah, I saw, you know, like I'm friendly with Kalkovecchia, and I saw like he didn't even know, and as tight as you guys are, and all that stuff. Like, so some of your closest friends never even knew about this.
I told no one.
Yeah, and is it?
I mean, think about it. I mean, how you know, I remember my father those last words. You know, kid, I'm sorry. Don't ever tell a soul, and you did nothing wrong. And that's what I did. And I mean, I never told the soul for 50 years almost. It's I mean, it's a hard thing to talk about. You know, I mean, you know, and in the book I go into a little more detail because I think too many people in America, because it's such an awful subject, don't understand how intense and physical and nasty this abuse can be, you know, and they kind of sugarcoat it with, well, maybe it's just some touchy and this and that. And, you know, that was the decision that I had to, you know, fight with. And, again, if I'm going to tell the truth, I'm going to have to tell the truth. And it's, you know, I just think it's a shame that the powers to be in these states and feds don't do enough to help kids. I mean, we know how many kids are getting abused in terms of ballparks, but and some of the laws are so lenient. It's just, these are kids. I mean, I was just a kid. I mean, it should never happen to anybody.
Yeah, it's really courageous of you, Ken, to go and put yourself out there and talk about these things. As like I said, I can't even, you know, wrap my head around it, let alone, you know, feel like can't even comment on it. But I think it shows a lot of courage on your part, and hopefully, you know, it's also the helping of the other people, that this helps one person or two people, one person. It's worth it, and hopefully it's
absolutely.
Is it? I mean, when people come up and say thank you for talking about this, it has to make it. Does it help your soul a little bit that you're doing this for the right reason, and does it make all that pain? But there's, what am I trying to say? With all that pain, yet there's good on the other side after all these years it's coming out. That has to, you know, make you feel like you're doing this for the right reasons. And even though it's brutally hard for you, helping other people has to be the end goal of this, I have to imagine. And I hope it brings some, you know, closure, if you ever can get something like that from that, or knowing that you're helping helps your soul a little bit as well.
Oh, I'm very relieved when, you know, like I said, with some of these the letters I've received and the conversations that I've had, and it's you know, it does do a heart good that you're helping other people, you know, let it out. And you know, a couple of them have said they're gonna go talk to their spouse, and you know, I mean, I had one person who was 72, and he had never told anyone, and it's, you know, it's just like I was talking about earlier. It's just that you become a totally different person, and your personality changes. So, you know, like now that this is in my head all the time, you know, now I got to fight with, well, who would I have been, you know, and would I have not done this mistake, or how would I have handled this stuff, you know, which is, of course, the worst thing in the world you can do. But, let's face it, we're humans. I guess that's what we do. But so I can't be happier when someone tells me that they're proud of me and they've helped me, get through it. And they decided to talk to someone they love and let it out. And so they can let it out. So they can at least let the secret out. I mean, their lives are moving on, but at least it can be out of their head and they can go through life without as much anxiety.
This is what's amazing on the book of how sometimes I read through the book. I don't know how you're still standing, but then what happened with your brother in the RV accident and your leg and losing your career from a golf standpoint. At the same time, your girlfriend is taken from you. Your dog's taken, and then the tragedy of your son. I don't know how at times. If you just read the book, which I've read it, to me it's amazing you're still standing and you're still strong enough to do this, because it is a crazy story at some level of the things that have happened to you in one lifetime. You're courageous as hell, bro, because I don't know if I could have gotten through it.
Well, thanks. I don't know how I haven't lost my sanity or called it a day, or because so much has happened, and it's I don't know if it's just my stubborn personality or that fight for life that I was talking about earlier, and it just doesn't. I don't, or not wanting to I know this sounds bizarre, but I went through the real bad depression with the suicide, and the book will explain all that. And, I'm alive because of a dog. I mean, literally a dog. And the idea that I don't want to fail again, even though I know it's not right to say that I failed, because, depression is depression. You can't control when that happens. You don't know about it. But in my mind, and this is where I'm kind of hard on myself, I believe I failed. So I don't want to fail again. So now all this other stuff starts happening, and I've made a promise to myself that I'm going to fight for life. And it's hard. When I lost my son, that was like, oh, wow, and it's like, I never asked, big guy or why or anything like that. I said, really, like, really, but it's, I'm gonna, I just refuse to give up. I just, whether I have, 5 days left on planet Earth or 25 years, I want to fight for every day.
Well, it's, like I said, the book is like I said, there's times I was laughing and times I was in tears reading it, and it's I think it's an important book, and I hope people, get the book, read it, and hopefully your life is touched in a positive manner by the end of it, of like I said, the courage you've had to face what you've faced. And I also want to say, just, growing up playing golf in the 80s and 90s, you were one of my heroes, and the courage you've displayed with everything you've been through, it's well beyond, like, you were my hero for the wins on tour and the Ryder Cup and all that stuff. But this is it's pretty amazing when one of your boyhood heroes, helps make the world a better place, and it's beyond the golf. So just want to say it's been an honor and a privilege to get to know you, and what you're doing it's pretty amazing.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much. It means a lot to me.
Well, thanks for being on. Like I said, hope people get the book. Your insights are always, such appreciated, because you've seen about everything in the game of golf you can have happen. So, always appreciate the conversation, and let's stay in contact. And love to have you on again at some point.
Sounds good, big boy. Hey, don't forget, it's KenGreenGolf.com that you can order the book.
Yeah, is that the best spot to get it for people?
Right now, well, this is me being me. I refuse to give Amazon the book right now, because the piece of the pie that they want, because I'm not really making anything on the book. It's called Going to Dogs. Is too big a piece. It's like, wait a minute, I have to pay for the printing and all this and the editing and all this, and they take 25%, they take 50% of the retail. So say it's $12 a piece, they're going to make $12, and our net profit might be $4.50. I'd rather lose money than give Bezos more money.
No,
and
I
if
think
people if they're too lazy to go to KenGreenGolf.com, then they're missing out.
Yeah, and I think the people who love golf and want to read this, I think they'll be able to find it, right? I mean, I think they're going to be able to know where you're at with it. So, no, thanks. I forgot to bring that part up, but for all the listeners out there, that's the best spot. And also, I know, for Ken will sign the book for you too. He did mine, and it's
I do everything myself.
Yeah, it's on my shelf, and it's a pretty cool piece to have. So, thanks again, Kenny, for everything. I appreciate it.
All right, big boy, be good.